So we are now live, hopefully. It's always hard to tell. So good evening. This is Debbie Larkin from Kids Around Dogs. This evening we have such a special author, Larry Grogan. Hello, Larry. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, brilliant. So Larry wrote a lovely book, A Tale of Love, Life Lessons from Scrappy, a Pet Therapy Dog. This is right up my sleeves and up the Kids Around Dogs sleeves. Therapy dogs are fantastic help, not only to children, to be fair, you know, all ages. So before we dive into the book, Larry, can you tell us a little bit about Scrappy? Scrappy is the hero, if you like, of your book. How did Scrappy come into your life?
Well, it was a very interesting situation. I was living in New York at the time, upstate New York, not the city. And some people refer to Scrappy as a rescue dog, and not in the technical sense. She was rescued because I was seeing a young lady who had a very young child who was just too rough on Scrappy. And so when we stopped seeing each other, we both agreed it was in everybody's best interest if Scrappy came with me. So in that sense, she was rescued. But she was with me for 12 and a half years. And during that time, we just did so much. We traveled together all over the United States. And it was just a great time with her. We never really wanted to be apart. And that was the interesting thing about our relationship. But I'd get on the train, go down to New York City, and I always put her on the inside seat so she could watch everybody go by. And it was like watching a tennis match. Her little head was just going back and forth, back and forth. But that's how we came to be. And in the meantime, we became a pet therapy team.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about, the fact that you split up and then you get the dog. I mean, all with my exes, the things I got were like, I don't know, some tissues I left behind. So you definitely lucked out there. Definitely lucked out.
Yeah.
So how old was Scrappy when you guys moved in together?
She was about 1.5, maybe 2 years old. She was very young.
Quite young, yeah.
Yeah, and she was still learning, and we did a lot of training together, but she turned out to be an incredible animal. She was that type of dog that never wanted to disappoint me. So she was always just real eager to do whatever asked.
Is that why you thought, why don't you become a therapy dog? What made it happen?
Yeah, that, honestly, that was part of it. She was just so well-mannered, and she loved to be around people. She just had a wonderful little personality about her. And we didn't start until she was 4 years old. And so she had the maturity. And so we went through the training. And one of the things that we would do is we would go to department stores and get her accustomed to things moving around, unexpected noises. And this all helped when she was inside the hospital, because you never knew what you were going to expect or experience during that time.
Indeed. What breed was Scrappy?
She was a mix between a toy poodle and a Chihuahua.
So she was quite small. I know you have her photos in the book, by the way, her portrait rather, and you also see her behind you.
Yes.
So yeah, lovely, cute little girl she was. And she worked for 8 years. That correct, right?
That's right. That's right. We were there at the Children's Hospital for 8 years, and just had some amazing experiences. And she was so well appreciated that she was what I call on call. There were occasions when children were just having a bad day, and they might not have had pet therapy scheduled that day. And we were close enough to the hospital, they could just pick up the phone. And, in 10, 15 minutes, we could be there. So it just worked out great for everybody.
It really did. Wow, what a thing. That's amazing. And I know it's a bit tough because I'm imagining, and as I read the book as well, I picture myself in some situations, and it must have been hard. You know, I know you were doing an amazing things, and Scrappy was doing an amazing thing, but it's undeniable that it must have been hard sometimes to witness some children being sick or going through chemo and things like this. So how did you not take it home with you, that kind of hardship in a way?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know that I've got the right answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never forget it,
No,
for one thing. And I think really the way that I would kind of separate it from my day-to-day life is just to know that we did something great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was all Scrappy. It wasn't me. But
But there.
yeah, well, I was there. I was a witness to how she approached things. And that was really what stimulated the thought about the book, was just I had time to reflect and think about these experiences. Honestly, a lot of them had disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But there were just those moments when I would think about certain situations at the hospital, and one in particular that I write about, where a young boy was getting chemotherapy. And you could hear him crying from the opposite end of the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so the nurse knew that we were coming, and she asked if we could go there first. And, you know, I just put Scrappy in between the two of us. And what I noticed, there were two things that I noticed about her.
Mm-hmm.
One, the little boy never took his hand off of her, never let go. He was just petting her and rubbing her. He never stopped crying, but it was never as intense of a cry while Scrappy was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed her get closer. You know, she would just take her little butt and move it a little closer to him. And so she kind of understood what was going on. And then, you know how dogs are when they are just absolutely adoring you and giving their love and compassion to you, you know, they just look up at you with those beautiful eyes. And she was just doing that constantly to this little boy. It was just an amazing thing to witness.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's really, really moving. And I before we went live, I did mention that I had to have tissues reading your book. But it's hard to say, oh, I cried in a good way, but it did, because what Scrappy did, and as you read through the book, there are some bits that are so honest and so in a way detailed, but not over detailed. I can't quite explain it, where you can picture yourself being in there, you can feel the situation, and it's heartbreaking, but at the same time for the right reason, because you guys together did such a good thing for so many. And you know, from an outside, you could say, oh, it was a cuddle, but it was a cuddle to someone who needed it. And isn't that so special, so important? One thing that also I wanted to ask you exactly on that. So as you described, the little boy kept cuddling or stroking Scrappy, and Scrappy was happy about it. It's fine, you know. She was that kind of dog that would enjoy and even thrive anything from doing that. But as we know, not all dogs are a good candidate for being dog therapy or pet therapy dogs, nor can they be for many reasons. So how could you maybe explain, if you ever had to do that, but how did you maybe manage the fact that, well, Scrappy was awesome at that and accepting all sorts of cuddles? Did you ever explain to children that not all dogs will be this friendly, and that you shouldn't approach every single dog because not every dog will be Scrappy, basically? Have you ever had to do that?
Yeah, occasionally. Honestly, it was rare that we had to do it at the children's hospital.
Yeah.
But there was one in particular, a little boy that we saw on a regular basis, and he was a bit rambunctious.
Nice.
And so when our routine was, Scrappy knew when we pulled into the area of the hospital, and she just got overexcited. I mean, she was just bouncing all over me while I'm trying to drive. And so I intentionally got there a little early to give her time to kind of calm down before we go visit. And so we would be in the lobby of the hospital, and this one little boy, we always seemed to find him in the lobby while we were waiting. And he would just get so excited when he saw her. And he would drop anything. If he had a bag, he dropped it. If he was wearing a coat, he dropped it and just started running right at Scrappy. And she just kind of stood her ground. She didn't do anything. And he wouldn't get rough, but he would get a little bit more firm, you know, in his handling with Scrappy. But he always took his hands and put her right on his or her face.
Around, yeah.
And they would go nose to nose. And Scrappy really didn't care for it too much. So what she did, her defense mechanism was licking him in the face.
Right,
That tongue became the defense mechanism just to get him to back off. And both of them were fine with it. Both of them got what they wanted. The little boy got the attention that he was craving. Scrappy got him to back off a little bit. But really, that was the only time. You know, most of these children that we saw, the first thing was they were very surprised to see a dog in the hospital.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
That was, you know, they never expected it. And she was so small. I mean, she only weighed 5 pounds. And so when I first started going, she was just walking like a dog, you know, on the ground, but no one could ever see her. So I'd get to the room and the child would be in the bed. It's like, would you like to see Scrappy? And they're looking at me. They're not looking down. Yeah, exactly. So I started picking her up and I'd carry her on my forearm. And that took all the attention away from me. It got it right to where it needed to be. But most of the time I would just hold her. And so they would just pet her, you know, while she was on my arm. And so we never really had to have that conversation. You know, there were times when maybe a sibling was in the room. They might have gotten a little too rough. And I would just ask them to be a little bit more gentle, you know, maybe take the hand and just kind of rub it the way that I would want them to pet Scrappy. But that was really about it.
Okay. Oh, that's good then. Also, we find in the book that Scrappy at one point had cancer, and did you think that the children could relate with her because she had cancer? Did you find important for some children to know about it? How did you deal with it?
Yeah, I thought it was very important to share that because, you know, personally, I've never had it. No one in my family has ever had it. My experience was with the children in the hospital, but I was also paying close attention to their family. And anytime you hear the word cancer, there's always that emotional devastation that we have to go through. And I think it's more difficult on mom than it is anybody else. And so, you know, we would talk about it. And I never knew any of the children's names. I never asked. It was, number one, it's none of my business. And so I didn't really ask what their condition was. Occasionally it would come up. And so I thought it was beneficial to say, you know what, Scrappy had cancer too. And they were surprised. You know, they'd just kind of sit back in the bed and I say, look how good she is now. You know, if they can take care of Scrappy, they're going to take care of you. And so if you kind of share that with someone that they don't really know, they've just met Scrappy and they're petting on her and having a good time, and they see that she's doing well, you know, they can do well. So I think it's good for the child, but it's also good for the mom, you know, any of the family members for that matter too.
Also because being optimistic as well and positive thinking can also help to make us feel better. I'm not saying that, you know, we get to a point of curing cancer. I'm not, and I'm not a doctor anyway, but being optimistic, feeling elevated, feeling positive can definitely help to.
I agree with you. And I think that whole mental attitude, having the right mental attitude going into a situation like that in particular is just so important.
It really
And
is.
if
Yeah,
whatever you can do to share that positive attitude with someone's going to go a long, long ways.
yeah, indeed. And Scrappy was definitely there for that.
Yeah, she was.
Fantastic. So would you do it again? Would you have another pet therapy dog, or would you help other people who have dogs to go to them?
I would do it again. I'm not ready yet.
Mhm.
You know, my business and family life are a little hectic right now. But what I do want to do is encourage other people to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's an amazing experience to be in a position where you can do so much good for someone and not really necessarily understand how valuable what you're offering is, because you're only there for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're not spending a half hour or an hour with
Mhm.
these children. It's just a couple of minutes. But to
Mhm.
be able to have that kind of impact on someone is just a tremendous emotional experience.
Gosh, it is,
And
yeah.
as we were saying earlier, these were things that you just won't forget.
Mm.
And so I encourage everyone that has a pet that has gone through some obedience training, has the right temperament, to consider it
Mhm.
and know what that experience in life is really going to be about. It's tremendous. It's just absolutely tremendous.
Oh, that's beautiful. And on that as well, if anyone does want to consider it, also make sure that you go to your local positive force free professional and go through the right channels rather than guessing it.
Yeah,
Winging it. I just bring my dog.
yeah, it's exactly right.
Exactly. Um, on a little bit about your book again. You worked with Scrappy for years, and then 2 years to write the book. While Scrappy was with us, did you ever think, oh, I could write the story of Scrappy and me, or did it never cross your mind until afterwards?
It never entered my mind at all. You know, Scrappy, when she passed away, there was just this void in me. And I had to find a way to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was I would literally just take a piece of paper and rip the corner off. And I'd write a little note on that, and I'd fold it up and I'd put it with, you know, her remains in a container.
Mm-hmm.
And this would just go on multiple times during the day, every day, whatever the case might be. But those notes then became letters that I would write her. And then those letters became stories. And so, as we were saying earlier, I finally had an opportunity just to kind of sit down and think about all the great things that we did together. And so as I started writing these things down, I just had a collection of papers that I needed to get organized. You know, I'd like to think I'm a little bit organized. You wouldn't know it by looking at my desk right now.
Actually,
But
the background looks very tidy.
yeah. So it was really just that opportunity to take those little pieces of papers and notes and stories and begin to formulate something that would resemble a book.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the first anniversary of her passing, I went away and I didn't go far, but I just found a little cabin in the woods where I wouldn't be disturbed. And I was surrounded by amazing wildlife, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started writing, and I just kept writing and writing, and then took what I had and organized it. And I think by the end of the weekend, I had maybe 24 pages, nothing that would ever represent a book, but I just kept doing it. And so the second anniversary of her passing, we went back to New York, where we used to live, and stayed for an entire week and just continued that process. And so by that weekend or that week, I think I might have had 79 pages or something to that effect. And I shared it with just a couple of friends. And one in particular encouraged me to get it published. I'd never done anything like that. So I had to find the resources to do it. And, you know, just went through that process of getting it published, going through the editing process, the whole bit, finding someone to design the cover for me and all that. So it was a great experience.
Mhm.
And now it's as great
Yeah.
because I'm talking with lovely people like yourself and a lot of other people around the world about the book. But my focus is always on Scrappy. I want people to know just really how great she was and the great things that she accomplished. And like I said, my life now, my role right now is really to be more of a pet therapy dog advocate.
Mhm.
And then maybe one day I'll get back into it myself, but now it's just not the right time.
Yeah, but I think with your book, you're definitely keeping Scrappy alive somehow. And as you call it, the life lessons, they definitely are. And they can, she's still helping somehow.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
brilliant. I love that. As I mentioned before, we went live, I'm a avid reader. I love reading, and so I have a few favorite books. But what is your favorite book? Do you enjoy reading as well?
This may surprise you, probably going to surprise your listeners as well. I'm not an avid reader.
Right.
I do read, but I own my own business. I'm an investment advisor.
Right.
So the reading I do is really related to my business, not so much for pleasure. I will say that my grandmother was considered to be a Shakespearean authority back in the day.
Okay.
I actually have her thesis book on Shakespeare's sonnets
Oh, blimey, right.
that she got. And so, I used to travel England quite a bit for business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took my mother and father to England for a week. And one of the places that my mother insisted we go is Stratford upon Avon.
Oh,
So,
well, of course.
so we spent quite a bit of time there. But, when I read, it's really more for business purposes
Right.
than anything else, unfortunately. I haven't been able to depress my mind to get to a level of enjoyment for reading.
Well, I'm quite impressed with that because they say as well a lot of writers, read to also get inspiration. So you, although you're not an avid reader, you still wrote a lovely book, and
Thank you.
explain so many things. I don't want to, spoil it for anyone, but a lot of the things you touched on really, really touched me as well, because I lost my first dog, Pixel, passed away, and a lot of the things that you describe, a lot of the things that you mentioned really resonated with me and, made me feel all those emotions again. So while in some bits I was like, oh, I can't read this now. I need a second, I need to breathe, or I might need some water. But it was all, it was also so detailed and so good and so well written that allowed me to feel those things. And while sometimes we might not want to feel certain things, is also somehow good in a way, feels like therapeutic. And grief can be such a horrible thing. It goes up and down, and even years later, it can still hit you like it just happened. And sometimes it's good to feel those things, even when we don't really want to. So what is your plan for the future? I'm sure you're quite busy with your book now, but do you have any plans, another book, or are you touring? What's your current situation?
Well, the promotion of the book is really just beginning. One of the things that we've been doing in the meantime is really just the sales are just through word of mouth and opportunities like this for people to buy it. And what we typically do is each month a percentage of the sales go to support a charity.
Oh,
So
lovely.
it can be animal related, it could be children related. It doesn't make any difference as long as it, fits a worthwhile cause. But I am getting some attention now, some publicity. So I've got some opportunities coming up with more podcasts where we can talk about different aspects of visiting and being a pet therapy team. I'm always going to advocate for pet therapy. I'm going to advocate for pets and dogs in particular. And so through the podcast, I've got some TV episodes coming up where we'll get some national publicity as well. And then ultimately, like what I'd like to do is get on a speaking circuit and talk about what all of this can really do. I think one of the things that we are all dealing with, it doesn't matter where we are, is the mental health aspect and how pet therapy and pets in general can address some of those mental health issues. And because, when we pet a dog, our body releases a hormone called oxytocin, and it reduces the stress and the tension in our body. It just makes us feel good. And so we just need to do more of it, but we need someone out there talking about that. And that's what I would like to do, is just share that information about how our bodies react in the presence of an animal. And so that we can, when we have a wonderful dog like Scrappy, or your dog or anyone else's wonderful dog, share that animal with someone else so that they can feel better and release some of that mental strain that's been going on in our world.
Oh, that is so true. And hopefully we might even have you back in a bit.
I'd love to.
Again, to talk about this, in more details. And can I just say as well, the book. So the book is available on Amazon. I wrote about it before. Is available in the UK as well as in the US. And Larry, your website is also www.ataleoflove.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. A Tale of Love, TAIL.
Yes, Tale of Love.
Yeah,
I love that. Also, you're also on Instagram at A Tale of Love. Again, tail as doggy tail. A Tale of Love, and on Facebook. And Larry, I can't thank you enough first of all, for sharing your book with the approved professionals. So if you are a KAD approved professional, remember this is part of our library. But also for being this evening for us, close to evening for you, but not quite. And yeah, for talking to me, and for just being here is brilliant. Oh, we have a question as well on Facebook. Now I can hear myself talking. It's Christopher. Christopher is one of our KAD approved professionals, by the way. Christopher asks, did you ever find that when Scrappy was in the role of therapy dog, ever needed a timeout from the children? Did she ever get overwhelmed? And did you ever need to step in?
While we were working, number one, Christopher, that's a great question. While we were working, the answer is no. We were somewhat limited on our time. We normally never spent more than an hour at the hospital with the children. And so it was always one-on-one. It was never a group setting. But when she got home, that was a different story. It was obvious that she was emotionally spent, and she would get on her favorite blanket, and hopefully the sun was shining, and she would just lay on that blanket in the sunshine and get her good nap in. But that's a great point, and something that needs to be understood, because these animals share their emotion, they share their compassion, and they need that time to decompress themselves. And so we need to make sure that the structure is limited from a time perspective. And then once you get home, they need their time to rest also.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Couldn't agree more on that. And to be fair, you probably needed it too, I would have thought.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, it just depends on the situation. Most of it was just very friendly and very easygoing. But, I did describe a couple of situations, very intense situations, that we had to deal with a couple of times. But that was rare.
Yeah. Okay. So Larry, thank you again for this evening. Thank you so much for your book. So remember, it's A Tale of Love, available on Amazon, everywhere. And also the website again is www.atale, as in doggy tail, ataleoflove.com. And I pretend like this is a tail. I don't know.
Love it.
What breed is this? Larry, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll chat again soon. But in the meantime, I hope you'll have a fantastic rest of your day. And again, thank you so much.
Debbie, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye-bye.